Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Tommy MacDonald, a well-known woodmaker right here in Boston that handcrafts every piece of furniture he makes, including rocking chairs, dressers, beds, bar stools, and more. Tommy, welcome to the show.
What's going on? Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. I'm really looking
Yeah.
forward to having you share more with our listeners about who you are and what you do, if you'd like to start there.
Okay, sure. My name is Tommy McDonald. We have a brand called Tommy Mac. I'm one of like nine kids, so like we're all Mac and Tommy. So it's just kind of like what people have been calling me my whole life, and it just kind of stuck, right? Even though we have a team here, my wife and some other people. That's our brand, Tommy Mac.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Dorchester, and then I went to Canton for a little while. Went back to Dort, lived in Southie for a long time, and now I live in the North End, and that's where my shop is.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
I would love to hear how you got started in wood making. Like, how did you get into the industry and really what inspired you?
Okay. Uh, being one of nine kids and being the youngest boy, I was always like my dad's helper, right?
Hmm.
So at a really young age, I learned how to use all sorts of different type of tools, and it just was natural to me, right? And then in this, believe it or not, in the sixth grade, seventh grade, there was an after school program in my town, and it was at they sent kids to the local Voc Tech. So
Hmm.
I went to the Blue Hills Regional Voc Tech when I was in middle school, and I got exposed to things from auto body, welding, woodworking, masonry, you name it. I did it over there, right? And it was a great experience. And when it came time for me to go to high school, I actually went to that high school and I went into the carpentry department, and that's where I learned like a lot of carpentry skills. And then once I got out of high school, I joined the Carpenters Union, and I did a 4-year apprenticeship program. And then I was on my way as a union carpenter for like the next 10, 12, 15 years or so. And believe it or not, I broke my shoulder on a job site when I was like 35. So
Oh,
I needed to
no.
find a new career. Yeah, yeah. I had to find a new career. And my doctor at the time, his name's Ani Shella. He was the Celtics team doc. He was a really big deal, in the 80s and early 90s. And he told me about this place called the North Bennett Street School. It's in the North End, and I had never heard about it. And I never thought to be a furniture maker, but out of desperation, I just went to that school. I checked it out, and I filled out an application. I got accepted, and 4 months later, I started making furniture in 1999.
Oh my gosh. So, when you were making furniture, were you always working for yourself or did you work for another company before going on your own?
I started working for myself right out of school.
Hmm.
I sold everything that I made at school, so it paid for my tuition. I had a small company doing decks and additions and roofs and all that stuff when I was younger. So I just set up my own shop and started making furniture. And oddly enough, when I was a student, Bob Vila, who was the biggest name in home improvement at the time, was he did like a expose on the school, and he came into our department, and they asked me if I wanted to be on his show because I
Hmm.
was building this big crazy piece of furniture. It's a block front Salem secretary. If you want to go to my website or whatever and check it out, it was like this 9 foot piece of furniture that was really impressive. So he put me on his television show, and then I kind of weaseled my way into doing a couple more segments with him, right? And by the time I get out of school, I had kind of like a national name to making furniture. So it was really a godsend, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like the being in the right place at the right time and having a good opportunity that led you to become what you are today.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I was really devastated with my shoulder injury. I mean, it was really
Hmm.
tough. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was really like, 35 years old, having to find a brand new career. And
Yeah.
I'm a high school dropout ex-con, like, you know what I mean? It's like I had a troubled past. So it was really traumatic for me at the time. And I
Yeah.
just feel like God took me from one place and put me in another, right? And I can't believe how much my whole world opened up just from being exposed to that school. I started going to museums, started seeing other works of art, and I started to really dive into it and spend a lot of time learning about American decorative arts and all sorts of different types of furniture design across the world. It's kind of crazy. I even had the
Absolutely.
aptitude to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like one of those probably like full circle moments where you now probably take a look back and you're like, where would I be if this hadn't happened? It's almost like, I don't know if you've heard of the butterfly effect, but it's basically this idea where like if one action or one moment in your life didn't happen, there's so many following moments that wouldn't have happened either because of that one thing. So it's really cool to think about how that, even though, like you said, very difficult moment of breaking your shoulder led you down this path, but now look at where you are because you took that path.
Yeah, one thing about me, I'm always aware of opportunity, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not afraid to take the leap. And I once I got into that school, I really embraced whatever it started coming down the line. And it just talking about people and really, I feel like opportunities don't come around all the time, and you
Mhm.
have to be aware of it, and you have to be courageous enough to take advantage of those opportunities. So, like when I was a student at the Bennett Street School, when Bob Vila came to the school, right, he invited everybody, 40 students to participate in like his television program.
Mhm.
And he was doing a show called Home Again with Bob Vila. And it was like at the very end of the season, he would do like this grand opening of his project where he would go through this house and talk all about, the house. So he invited everybody to bring a piece of furniture or to get involved. And it was way down in Centerville. Like, it was a hike down from here, down
Yeah.
the Cape. And out of all those 40 people, I was the only person who took advantage of that opportunity.
Wow.
The only one.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I made 9 pieces of furniture at school, so I brought them all. So they found a place for all my furniture, and it was like a little mini, like, commercial for me, like, because every room he went into, he would showcase a piece of my furniture, and it really set the stage, for, what was to come.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear, since you started it, did you say you started your company in 1999? Was that the year?
That's when I started going to school, and
Going to school.
we opened up, like, I had a DBA and all that other stuff, but I actually got official, I think, in 2005.
Okay. Awesome. So
I've
wow.
been doing it before, right?
Yeah, so it's been,
25 years.
I was gonna say, yeah. And I'm curious to hear
I
in
know.
those 20 years that since you've started or officially opened in 2005, how has your company changed throughout that time?
I've had like a long, strange, winding road to where I am right now. When I first started making furniture, I was just making furniture, and I was making some really high-end American reproductions, right? Not total reproductions, just heavily inspired reproductions for like some deep-pocketed clients from New York and whatever. And then the bottom kind of fell out from that kind of work in like 2007 and 8. But at the same time, what had happened was, since I made a good impression on the people at bobvila.com, at Bob Vila, bobvila.com had called me, I think, in 2006, and said they wanted to build the brand for me on their website. At the time, it was the biggest home improvement website in the world. They said, here's a camera, here's a computer, you know, I just want you to shoot whatever you're doing around the shop.
Mhm.
So, believe it or not, I'm actually pretty introverted and shy. That's why I sit here and do furniture for 12 hours out of whack. And so we created like this name T Chisel for myself, right? So
Oh,
we
that's funny.
called it the Rough Side Show, and I was T Chisel. I still am. So a lot of people still call me T Chisel. And at the time, so I didn't know anything about computers. I didn't have a cell phone. Like, I had a flip phone. You know what I mean? Back then, you used to have to shoot video on your, like, on a card, and then you had to put it in your computer, load it onto your computer, then upload it. You know what I mean? It took like
Yeah.
overnight for like just 20 minutes of footage. And if you go to my website or my YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that video series that I shot in 2007 and 8.
Mhm.
And I built a serpentine front Boston Bombay secretary, which is one of the most complicated things to build in the world. And it was like a real progression on how to do woodworking. And I slowly but surely lost my mind doing it because it was very difficult.
Yeah.
But again, like, the opportunity was huge, right? Like, Bob Vila's, like, it was a massive, massive website. In retrospect, if I had known about YouTube, I probably just would have put it on YouTube, but I didn't know. Like,
Mhm.
I just didn't know that I didn't know, right? So,
Absolutely.
millions of people started to watch that podcast series on Bob Vila's website, believe it or not. And then we put
Yeah.
it on iTunes and all that other crap. And I sparked up a relationship with a friend of mine from the North Bennett Street School who was an upperclassmate of mine.
Mhm.
And he was in his 60s or 70s at the time. And he happened to be the very first architect that was on This Old House. It used to be a TV show on PBS, right?
Mhm.
It's still on, actually. So he said, listen, you should clean up your act, stop calling yourself teachers, or focus more on what you're trying to do. And if you do that, I'll make a phone call for you on your behalf at WGBH, because this guy named Noam Abram, I don't know if you know the name, he had a television show called The New Yankee Workshop that ran for 27 seasons on PBS, and he was making furniture. That's what it was, a really successful show, and it's still a great show now. So, woo, I feel like I'm talking a ton. So basically, so I had the inside track that he was retiring.
Yeah. Oh.
You know what I mean? So I started to pound on WGBH's door and prepare myself to be in a position once he actually retired. I had a 2-year jump head start, right? So I knew he was retiring, and I kept at the people at WGBH. So one day, believe it or not, it was like right before St. Patty's Day. I got a letter from GBH in 2009 saying that we were going to come together to co-produce a television show together. And I took that letter and I made a few phone calls from the people who were watching my website, the
Mhm.
websites here, right? Like I sparked up a lot of friendships with other people in the industry. And this one dude told me to call another guy. He was the CEO of a massive company. And I happened to cold call him. And I just said this. I says, listen, in this Boston accent of mine, you know what I mean? I says, listen, if I 29 years ago, if somebody came to you and said, listen, we're going to put a guy named Norm Abram on TV, you know, making furniture, what would you have done? He goes, well, I would have underwrote it. I said, well, here's your opportunity because he's retiring and here's my letter and I'm about to, take his place. And 3 weeks later, we had a signed contract for 6 years and $6.5 million to produce our television show. So then it was off to the races to learn a completely different craft. So yeah, I was the co-executive producer, writer, builder, designer, and host of that television show that ran for 7 seasons. We have
Wow.
like 98 episodes.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear what it was like to have your own TV show. And then it sounds like you might not have the show anymore. So I'm curious to hear what that was like of like transitioning off.
Yeah. You know what? Having that television show was enlightening. You
Hmm.
know, I I learned to have a really thick skin after a while because I was a sensitive person. I wasn't prepared for like the onslaught of negative energy that I got from the internet and from everybody else, right? I
Hmm.
just wasn't prepared for it. So it took me a while to filter through that. Listen, I'm from here. I got a hot temper. Like I don't let people talk negatively about me. You know what I mean? So I had a lot of like I like I banged heads with a lot of people because I just didn't take anybody's crap, and
Yeah.
it took a long time not to take that stuff personally,
Hmm.
and we had a really great run. I mean, I went to the Emmys 5 times, I'm
Wow.
over 5, but I still went, that was like a cool experience. Me and my wife had a great time going to seeing all the fancy people and everything, um, but the weird thing was I ended up getting away from being an actual furniture maker because we were just producing a television show. So, like, the things I started to make for television were geared for television.
Hmm.
Even though I was doing designs, it was more geared towards that, right? And then I was traveling 20 weekends a year promoting the television show and doing appearances. So in that time period, you would have thought that having a television show making furniture, people would be calling to buy furniture. Nobody ever called to want to buy a piece of furniture. And then our website transitioned into a different type of website to promote products for underwriters of the television show. So I kind of lost the identity of who I was as
Hmm.
a furniture maker and as a serious furniture maker and designer. I mean, a lot of people didn't realize that I made furniture before I showed up. They thought that I had won some sort of contest or whatever, right? Just to show up on TV one day. And I learned that's what people see of you, right? And it's made me a better person because the people that we see on TV or even here with this podcast, right? If somebody's seeing your podcast, they would have kind of like a notion of who you are. You know what I mean, Ashley? But they really don't know who you are, right?
Right.
You're This is a presentation that we're doing, right? So I learned to give a lot of other people slack, right?
Mhm.
And I really started to appreciate the way television was made and what it's really like, right? But that ended in 2016. And then after that happened, the pandemic happened, all that stuff. So I ended up back in the city and I was making my wife crazy. And she was like, "You need to have another shop." So a friend of mine in the North End had a building that was totally empty. And he said, "Why don't you come on in here and build a shop?" So I built another shop. And when was the pandemic? 2020, I guess,
Mhm.
21, whenever it was.
Yeah.
So that's when it was, right? And that's when I started to like commit to my craft and find a new identity of design on my own. And I started to make a ton of furniture, and I didn't realize how many people in my family and friends were kind of waiting for me to get back to it because they kept me busy through the pandemic. So honestly, the pandemic didn't bother me at all. I was in my shop making furniture, and it's like the pandemic's still going on because I'm still in my shop making furniture. You know what I mean? Well, the same to me, but I was able,
Exactly.
yeah, I was really able to create a line of furniture that I'm really proud of, that I think people that will resonate with people.
Absolutely. And that's a good point too, because as we all know, like during the pandemic, a lot of people were focused on house projects because they're spending so much time in their houses where they're noticing everything that they wanted to change or things they wanted to revamp in their house. So I imagine furniture probably fell under that bucket where they're like, actually, I don't really like this dresser that I have. I need a new dresser. So, like you said, it kept you busy. And I think it's really great that you took the time after your TV show to go back to your craft and what you felt so passionate about from the start.
Yeah, I didn't expect to. The TV show, I was so done with all of it. I didn't even want to do woodworking anymore. I actually started to produce another show
Hmm.
called Murder Matters. Right, I don't know if you've seen it on my website. I started to dive into trying to help families living with unsolved murder because my sister was murdered in 1990, and I never really processed any of that grief. So I'm glad that like the TV show ended and it gave me an opportunity to come back to something that was like really like a deep, deep wound that had never healed, right?
Hmm.
So I started to spend a lot of time with other family members of unsolved murder, and we were able to do some great work with like Maggie Bish and her family and some other families, and that was really pretty rewarding for me. But um, that was before the pandemic, and we were producing and pitching new shows after the television show ended in 2016. So we were really close to coming up with a couple of other television programs, but once the pandemic hit, that was it. Like production stopped all across the world. And that's when I,
Wow.
made my wife crazy enough to open up a shop.
And so that actually makes me wonder. I imagine that a lot of time goes into actually creating the furniture. How do you balance that with running a business? Like, I guess balancing both ends of what you do.
Um, I'm not a very good businessman, I'll be totally honest with you. So, we have some other people that I talked to that were trying to guide the ship, right?
Hmm.
And I'm always aware of opportunity, and just being in this showroom right here was an opportunity that just kind of came along, right? It's like God puts people in your life like right when you need them. So some people came into my life because it's funny. Like I'm in a space in the North End month to month, which is stressful, right? Because you never know when the doors are going to close.
Hmm.
So I started to reach out to like the city and my city councilwoman Gigi Coletta. She came down and saw me, and she started talking to me. She saw what I was doing. I was like, "Look, I need to find a new spot." So she was like, "Okay," and she put me in touch with the city, the Department of Small Business, right? And they put me in touch with the Boston Alliance. This is just in July, and we were just looking for a new shop space. And then my wife Rachel saw the space that we're in now, 155, and she was like, "We should just open up a gallery." So from that conception in July, we had the keys to this place September 1st. So
Wow, quick.
yeah, like you have to be willing to like change directions on a dime when you see an opportunity. So that's what we decided to do. And You have to come down, actually, it's really cool. I mean, you would
Yeah,
really dig this place. I'm
totally.
excited about this. Yeah.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
hoping that this is gonna help the business, right? Like, that's the whole thing. You have to get people to see your products.
Hmm. Absolutely. And with that being said, what's your favorite product that you've built, or I guess your favorite type of furniture to work on?
I I make really great, kitchen bar stools. They're like the best you're ever gonna see. They're well made, they're made to last for generations. And when I make a set of bar stools, I cut them out of the same piece of wood so they have harmony. Nothing I built has color on it, so it's not like I just went to the lumberyard, just grabbed a bunch of stuff out of the rack, made it, and killed it with color, with stain,
Mhm.
right? Like, I'm very, very methodical about the way I put things together. Because you probably don't realize this, but light bounces off of, like, the surface of a piece of wood, and if you cut apart a piece of wood and start flipping it around, the light's gonna interact with that surface differently. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying to you? So
Yeah.
it's pretty complex. Like, but I love making these, stools, and I think if I could just make anything all day long, it'd be rocking chairs. You know,
Oh, why is that?
I just love them. I just love that
Yeah.
rocking chair. It's complex, it's very difficult to make, and it doesn't look it when you see it. It just looks like something simple, but
Hmm.
it's not. Like, everything that I make is really complex, believe it or not. But
Yeah.
that rocking chair just I find it to be the most soothing thing that I sit on. I feel as though everybody should have a rocking chair in their house.
I love that. I mean, it's such like a classic piece, so that does make sense.
Yeah, well, your mom was probably, like, rocking you when she was pregnant with you, like, as
Hmm.
soon as you were born, as soon as we're born, we're being rocked to death, right? And then somewhere along the lines, we forget how soothing it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, like, every psychologist in America to pick up a rocking chair. I think it would be helpful, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, I just love making them. They're beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
They
And
do take a long time, though.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good question. So this, of course, depends on like the type of furniture, but what's like an average amount of hours a product takes you to build, would you say?
So the rocket chair probably takes about 60 hours, I'd
Oh my
say.
gosh.
Yeah. The beds take probably 30, 40 hours. I have, like, the since I'm doing the stools, I don't you'd be hard pressed just to buy one off of me unless I had it in
Mhm.
my showroom. So we do
Yeah.
sets of 2 or 4 or 6. So, um, those ones probably take an average of 7 hours each, you know, because it's all small batch manufacturing. It's not like just pumped out. It's like very methodical construction. So that's why it takes as long as it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so for anyone who's listening to this episode who is interested in getting into the woodworking industry themselves, what advice would you have for them just from what you've learned?
Have deep pockets before you jump into this pool. It's very challenging.
Yeah.
It's hard to convince people that, quality counts. People don't really see it, right? It's
Yeah.
kinda like education. I need to educate people. You need to educate people on why your furniture is set apart from others.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's a very satisfying people love to do this as a hobby, you know? It's
Yeah.
the 2nd most popular, hobby in America. You wanna take a guess at what number 1 is?
I feel like maybe baking, if that would count.
Knitting.
Knitting. Oh yeah, I was thinking of that one
Yeah,
too.
everybody does that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep, but woodworking is 2nd. So it's a great, great hobby. I would tell anybody that's thinking about doing this, keep your day job, set up a shop because it's expensive to set up a shop. It's like, $50,000 practically. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
To have one that's allows you to be more efficient with your time. And then start making things and selling them. And if it takes off, then run with it.
Yeah.
But just to start cold, like I did, and that'd be crazy. I did it because I had nothing else to do. I broke my shoulder and needed a new career. I don't know if I ever would have done it otherwise.
Yeah, I was wondering that if you hadn't broken your shoulder and that hadn't like kind of pushed you in this way, if you ever thought you'd go down this career path.
I always thought that I would just retire and have a shop and make rocking chairs for people. I just didn't
Yeah.
realize, a friend of mine had told me that. He was like, "Dude, you remember when you were like 20 years old? That's what you said you were gonna do." I said, "I don't remember that, but if you remember, then it's obvious, right?"
Hmm.
And here I am. I'm pushing 60 years old, believe it or not. I've been making furniture for 25 years, so I'm doing all right. I'm pretty blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is what their favorite local businesses are to support. So I'm curious to hear what yours might be.
Well, since we've been here, I support, Sprout right around the corner. So they came in here and they did all of our flowers and plants and whatnot. There's another girl down the street that actually does the flowers. I have a Cane's donut thing right here in front
Oh,
of me.
love canes.
Right? I'm going down to Delaware on Thursday, so I'm going to bring a couple dozen.
Oh,
You know,
yum.
yeah. And I live in the North End, so like any restaurant in the North End is always a good place to be, right?
Totally.
I
Yeah.
always thought about stare it if you're like in thinking about doing any kind of precision work, you need to buy a Sterrett Square. They're in Athol, Massachusetts. They make really, really great measuring devices. So I would tell you those are the companies that I love,
Yeah,
the ones that
that's
are right
great.
around me. Mostly food.
Yeah. I mean, especially being in the North End, you have so many
Oh my
options.
God, I'm like I ain't 250 pounds, I got to be careful.
Tommy, this has been such a fun episode, and I've really enjoyed having you come on the show to share everything that you've been doing. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to reach out.
Yeah, you can reach me at tommymac.us or just call me at 781-856-2210. That's literally my cell phone. It's on my card. It's on the front door. If you're walking by 155 Federal Street, just rap on the door. Or if you're walking through the North End, I'm right next to Chase Bank on Cross Street. Just rap on the door in there. Come in and see what I'm doing. And we have a book available too. My
Oh,
25 years of my
amazing.
best work. Yeah, just I'll send you one, Ashley. I'm really quite proud of it. It's
Yeah, that's
25
great.
years of my best work, and it took me and my wife and some friends like 2 years to curate and get that thing together and to market. And it's
Yeah,
printed in the United States up in New Hampshire.
there you go. Nice and local.
Yeah, keep it local. That's why I appreciate your show.
Yeah,
It's all
thank you
about
so
local,
much,
right?
Tommy.
Yeah, thank you.